There's a specific, profound kind of pain that we really need to talk about today. And it's tricky because it's not the kind of pain that, screams or throws things. It doesn't beg for attention.
Right.
It's a pain that just waits. It's that feeling of opening your mouth to pray or to ask for help and finding the heavens just feel completely sealed.
It's a haunting image.
Mm-hmm.
The source material we're looking at today describes it as searching for God and finding not anger, not rejection, not even punishment, but silence.
No.
Just absolute static.
And honestly, that nothing can hurt so much more than active suffering.
Oh, absolutely.
Because usually when things go wrong, there's noise, right? There's a crisis, adrenaline kicks in, you have a problem to solve. But this is just the dial turned down to zero.
Right.
And the core conflict our sources are tackling today is that moment when you stop asking, why is this happening? And you start asking the much scarier question, is anyone even there?
And it just shifts the ground completely from under your feet.
Yeah.
What makes this deep dive so crucial is that we're exploring this very specific argument, one that you find in these theological and mystical texts.
Yeah, what's the argument?
They argue that this silence, this perceived nothingness, isn't actually an absence. They claim that silence is actually a very intense form of activity.
Activity? How?
It's just happening at a frequency that we, with our limited sensory equipment, can't quite perceive yet.
Which is a bold claim, because when you're in it, it doesn't feel like a high-frequency activity.
No. Feels like being abandoned.
It feels like being ghosted. So our mission today is to unpack this whole phenomenon, the spiritual experience of feeling abandoned by God. We've got a stack of notes here drawing from theology, from mystics like St. John of the Cross, and scriptural analysis.
And the main thesis is,
yeah,
it's fascinating.
Yeah. It's that people don't lose faith because they stop believing God exists. They lose faith because they stop feeling that God believes in them.
That distinction is the absolute linchpin of this entire discussion.
Yeah.
It's not about God's existence. It's about the relationship.
They're dynamic.
The dynamic, yeah. When the line goes dead, we panic. So we really need to take apart why this hits the human psyche so hard.
Okay, let's start there. The why. Why does silence automatically translate to I've been dumped in our brains? I mean, if my best friend doesn't text me back for an hour, I don't assume they hate me.
Right.
But with the divine, it feels catastrophic.
Well, our source points out that we have to look at how human nature defines love, or especially in the early stages.
Okay.
Human love is almost entirely defined by feedback. It's a loop.
Yeah.
You speak, I listen. You cry, I comfort you. You tell a joke, I laugh.
It's a ping pong match.
Yeah.
I hit the ball, you have to hit it back. If I hit the ball and it just vanishes.
You stop playing.
Yeah.
Precisely. The heart panics.
Yeah.
Because it relies on that return volley. And this is where the text introduces a really important kind of technical term that we need to define.
What's that?
Consolation.
Consolation. Okay, in normal conversation, that sounds like, the prize you get for losing. A consolation prize. But it means something specific here.
It does. In a spiritual context, especially in the writings of the mystics, consolation refers to the feelings of faith. The emotional warmth, the tangible signs, those coincidences that make you feel seen, that high you get after a really good prayer session.
Okay, I know that feeling.
We all do. And we are trained, almost like Pavlov's dogs, to equate God with these consolations.
So we make a category error. We mistake the sensation of God for the reality of God.
Exactly. We think the goosebumps are the Holy Spirit. And the source argues that when those feelings evaporate, which they always do because no emotion is permanent, we assume the source of the feelings has evaporated too.
Which is a logic error.
It's a total logic error.
Yeah.
You don't cease to be married just because you aren't feeling a rush of romance for your spouse in that exact moment.
That's a great analogy. But the stakes feel so much higher here. To prove this point, that silence doesn't equal absence, the notes bring up what is basically the ultimate trump card.
The Jesus paradox.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. So if you look at the narrative of the crucifixion, you have Jesus, who is, in this theology, the Son of God, the most spiritually connected being ever.
Right.
And he cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
It's one of the most haunting lines in all of literature. It's so raw.
It is. But the analysis in the source material is vital here. It emphasizes this cry wasn't coming from a sinner who messed up. This was the cry of the beloved Son.
So what does that mean for us?
It means that if the perfect version of humanity can feel abandoned, then the feeling of abandonment cannot be used as proof that you are doing something wrong.
That's actually a huge relief. Because the default mode for most of us is shame.
Immediately.
If I feel empty, I must be broken. I must have done something. But the source is saying, no, feeling abandoned might actually mean you're standing exactly where Christ stood.
You're not lost. You're just at a very specific, very difficult coordinate on the map.
It completely reframes the experience. It moves it from a failure of faith to something else.
A potentially profound deepening of it. But, and this is a big but, we have to clear away all the debris of that shame first.
Right, because the first thing your brain screams during the silence is, what did I do?
What did I do wrong?
I must have sinned. I'm being punished. I didn't pray enough. It's this endless, awful audit of your own behavior.
And our source is very explicit here. It wants to stop that spiral. It provides a not list.
The not list, okay.
Silence is not punishment for hidden sins.
Yeah.
It is not a sign that your prayers are just bouncing off the ceiling.
That they're worthless.
And it is not evidence of spiritual failure.
The source backs this up with some historical evidence that I found just compelling. It talks about Mother Teresa. The cultural image of her is this beacon of constant glowing faith, like she was walking around in a cloud of spiritual bliss.
But her private journals, published after her death, they revealed something shocking.
What was it?
She lived for decades, without feeling God's presence. She described it as this agonizing inner emptiness, a darkness, all while she was out there serving the poorest of the poor every single day.
Decades. I get frustrated if I have a bad Wi-Fi signal for 10 minutes. The idea of 50 years of spiritual static it's unimaginable.
It puts things in perspective, doesn't it? And then you have St. John of the Cross, the 16th century Spanish mystic. He's the one who coined the term everyone throws around, the dark night of the soul.
Which sounds like a Batman movie.
It does. But it's actually a technical description of this spiritual dryness. And his insight was revolutionary. He argued that the dark night isn't God leaving.
Okay.
He argued it's God coming too close.
Too close. That seems so counterintuitive. How does coming closer make you feel less?
Well, the analogy he uses is, what happens if you look directly at the sun?
You go blind. You see darkness, spots in your vision.
Exactly. The light is so intense, it overwhelms your sensory mechanism. St. John argued that when the divine presence becomes too profound, it just shorts out our emotional circuits. We interpret it as darkness, but it's actually an excess of light.
A ray of darkness.
Yes.
That's a mind bender, but it also makes a weird kind of sense. If you overload a sensor, it reads 0.
Right. And the source uses another analogy that's a little more down to earth.
Which is?
Training wheels. The text suggests that silence is God removing the training wheels.
Okay, so let's talk about that transition. Because the source mentions this idea of beginner's luck in spirituality, which I think a lot of people will recognize.
It's a very common phenomenon. When you first start a spiritual journey or you come back to faith after a long time away, you often get a lot of, candy. Lots of answered prayers, lots of emotional highs, a ton of clarity. Everything feels synchronistic.
It's like a parent clapping for a toddler who just took one wobbly step. Good job. You did it.
Exactly. It's necessary encouragement. You need that positive reinforcement to keep going.
Right.
But you don't clap for a 25-year-old because they walked across the room.
I mean, I'd appreciate the applause, but point taken. It would be weird.
It would be infantilizing. A mature relationship doesn't survive on constant praise. It survives on commitment.
That's a good point.
If you only love your partner when they're buying you gifts and telling you you're amazing, you don't actually love them. You love how they make you feel. You love the transaction.
Oof. Okay. That hits home. So the silence is a test of the relationship itself. It strips away the transaction.
It's the critical shift. The source describes this as moving from emotional faith to volitional faith.
Yeah.
From consolation, the feeling, to covenant, the promise.
From I feel God to I trust God.
Yes. And the ultimate question God is asking you in the silence is this: will you choose me even when I no longer make you feel good?
It's asking for a love that isn't dependent on the benefits package.
That's it. It sounds incredibly difficult.
Sounds like growing up.
That's exactly what it is.
Spiritual maturation.
I think if you're listening to this, you might be asking, if God isn't gone and he's just being quiet to help us grow, what is he actually doing while we're sitting here in the dark? Because waiting feels so passive.
And boring, frankly.
And boring.
The source actually outlines 4 specific works of silence. 4 things happening under the hood while the car feels like it's stalled.
Okay, let's run through these, because if I know something is happening, I can endure the wait. What's number 1?
First is purifying motivation. You've sort of touched on this, but it goes deeper. It forces you to distinguish between seeking God versus seeking the comfort that God gives.
Loving the giver versus loving the gift.
You got it. Silence forces you to check your pockets and ask, why am I really here? Am I here for the spiritual high or for the relationship?
It's a spiritual audit. It exposes if you're just a fair weather friend. Okay, what's number 2?
Strengthening trust. This is about moving beyond evidence-based faith. If your faith collapses the moment you don't get a sign, it wasn't really faith. It was just observation.
It was just reacting to stimuli. Silence builds a muscle that can hold weight without a visible prop.
That makes sense. It's one thing to trust a bridge when you can see all the steel supports. It's another to walk across it in a thick fog when you can't see the other side.
And that muscle only grows when the supports are hidden. Number 3 is surrender. This is a huge one for the modern mind.
How so?
When God answers our prayers, we feel a sense of control. I prayed, X happened. We feel like we have a lever we can pull.
Right. I put the coin in, I get the gumball. It feeds our ego because we think we cracked the code.
Exactly. When he is silent, that lever breaks. You pull it, and nothing happens. And you're forced to realize you are not in charge.
That's terrifying for control freaks, which is basically everyone.
And the mystics argue that true transformation only happens when we let go of that illusion of control.
So it's the 4th one. This one seems a bit deeper.
Union with desolation. This connects your experience directly to the nature of Christ. The source points out that Jesus saved the world, not at the Transfiguration, that moment of glory and light on the mountain.
No, it was on the cross.
On the cross, in the dark, in the silence.
So by experiencing silence, you're not just suffering pointlessly, you're actually participating in the same work that Jesus did.
You're sharing in the family business, so to speak, the business of loving through the darkness. It gives the suffering dignity.
It's not just sadness.
It's union.
There's a really interesting, slightly provocative point in the source material about who this happens to. You'd think silence happens to people who are drifting away.
Or people who are bad at religion.
Right, but the text says the opposite.
It's the paradox of the faithful. Silence rarely bothers the indifferent. If you don't care about God, you don't notice the silence.
You're too busy distracted by a million other things.
The silence is only acute for those who are actually listening.
So it comes to those who pray. That feels so unfair. I showed up, so now I get the silent treatment.
It comes to those who are ready. The source suggests God doesn't send this dark night to crush you, but because he wants to make you strong enough to handle reality.
Like a coach increasing the weight on the bar.
Exactly. He doesn't add weight because he hates the athlete. He adds weight because the athlete is ready to get stronger.
And there's a warning in here too, isn't there?
Yeah.
About what happens if we don't go through this training.
Yes. The text warns, a faith that has never been tested by silence will collapse when it is eventually tested by suffering.
And suffering comes for everyone.
It does. If you need good vibes to believe, what happens when tragedy strikes? When you get a diagnosis or lose someone you love? If your faith is built on feelings, it just evaporates.
So silence is the gym.
It's the gym where you build the structural integrity to handle the actual heavy lifting of life.
And if you skip the gym,
You get crushed by the heavy furniture of reality later on. The silence isn't a punishment, it's a preparation.
Okay, so we know what it is, we know why it's happening, but that doesn't change the fact that waking up to a silent sky is just brutal. We need a strategy. The source gives us a practical guide, right?
It does, an action plan for the void. Because you still have to get up and go to work while this is all happening.
Let's start with the don'ts. The text is pretty firm on these.
First, do not chase feelings.
Yeah.
This is the most common mistake. People try to manufacture an emotional high.
Louder music, more emotional services.
Trying to force a peer, the source says, stop it, accept the dryness. You can't force the sun to rise.
It's like insomnia. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you are. Okay, so don't.
Do not accuse yourself. We've covered this. Don't spiral into, I'm a terrible person.
It's just ego.
It's just the ego trying to find a reason for the pain. And third, do not abandon prayer. This is the big temptation. To say, well, nobody's home, so I'm hanging up.
It feels logical, though. Why keep talking to a brick wall?
Because the act of talking is the trust. So if we're not doing those things, what are we doing? The do list is surprisingly simple.
Pray simply. The source really emphasizes this. Stop looking for flowery words. Just show up.
Help, I'm here. This sucks. Those are all perfectly valid prayers.
I like this next one. Stay honest. The source says, tell God you're annoyed. Tell him it's dark.
Authenticity is always better than fake piety. God can handle your anger.
Mm-hmm.
He can't handle your fakeness because it's not real. You can't have a relationship with a mask.
And finally, continue choosing love, the volitional part.
That's it. Even if you feel nothing, go do the dishes for your spouse. Go help your neighbor. Make the choice of love, even without the feeling of love.
That is the highest form of love.
Loving when it's easy is, well, it's easy. Loving when you feel dead inside, that's heroic.
There's a beautiful reframing of prayer in here that I think ties this all together. It says that even when prayer feels like talking to a wall, it is never wasted.
This is the key takeaway for me. Silence doesn't mean God has stopped listening. The Source argues it means he is listening more deeply than ever.
How so?
He's listening to your will, not just your emotions. He's watching you stay when you have every reason to leave. It's a deeper intimacy, like a couple sitting quietly in a room, not talking, but completely together.
That brings us to the conclusion of the source material, which I found really moving. It asks you to do this little mental time travel exercise. Fast forward 5, 10 years, look back on this time.
And you might look back and realize that this terrible, quiet season was actually the most important time of your life.
The moment your faith became real.
Because it wasn't propped up by the music or the community or that shiver down your spine. It was just you.
Just you standing in the dark, deciding to believe anyway.
And that is a fortress that cannot be knocked down.
The source ends on this one concept, staying.
Yes. Ultimately, the victory isn't that you prayed a prayer that made the lights come back on. The victory is that you didn't walk away. That quiet, aching, faithful staying.
And the text describes that act, just refusing to leave.
As the loudest prayer a human being can ever pray.
That's powerful. It changes the definition of success. Success isn't hearing a voice. Success is just holding your ground.
Precisely. It turns the silence into a badge of honor, rather than a mark of shame. It means you're one of the ones who stayed.
So if you're listening to this and you're in that quiet place right now, maybe the point isn't to force the sun to come up.
No.
Maybe the point is just to trust that the sun is still there, spinning, even when you can't see it.
And to know that in the dark, you are being built into something capable of withstanding the night.
That's all we have for this deep dive. It's a heavy one, but hopefully it gives a little context to the quiet. Thanks for listening.
Take care.